gentlemen, welcome back to Listen, I'm a Barber podcast. Took a little bit of a break from filming, and I think this is what actually kind of brought me here today with my guest. I got my man Marcos here. Marcos, how you doing, brother?
Jay, pleasure to be here.
Thank you, man. Welcome to this fucking show, because it's something I did for fun. I had a great time doing it, but I've gotten to a point where now I kind of want to show a little bit of a different understanding to maybe how I view life. You know, it was weird. We kind of only really got to meet each other because of like a mutual friend. Shout out to Nick Basillo.
Shout out to Pauls.
Yeah, Pauls, the whole crew, because without them even making this connection, I don't think this would be what it's about to be.
No, absolutely.
I guess I'll just start it real quick like this. I don't really talk to a lot of new people. In this world, I like my people. I have my set group of people that I roll with, and sometimes it's kind of like, hey, I think you should talk to somebody, and if I value that person's opinion, I'll give it the shot. And I'm very happy I did that with you.
No, I really appreciate the time, and yeah, so forth as the friends that we brought up, that we have a lot of mutual friends, and fortunately that we've been brought at this point in time to meet each other, even though we could have tapped in and ran into each other and crossed experience at any time. But now it's a very crucial place because, as we've already spoken in small time, in a brief moment, we have a lot to offer.
We have a lot in common. I don't really like actually what we have in common sometimes, because it kind of reminds me of kind of how this conversation is going to take place. I think before we get into all that, can you give everybody a little bit of a background on yourself real fast?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Marcos Marte, son of immigrants from the Dominican Republic, very prideful in my roots and where I've come from, especially in today's day and age. Right now I'm 31 years of age, born in 92. Actually was born in Paterson, New Jersey. And if you've ever seen that movie Stand By Me, I was actually about to go and enter into that high school. So I've had a lot of weird experiences there, and the theme around that high school, East Side High in Paterson, and the environment that I was going to enter. And miraculously, my father got a very nice opportunity in his employment, and we moved to Blackwood, where I was a resident for 20 years.
Good old
Blackwood, Lewis, Highland. So graduate, always a Tartan. But no, life has progressed. Now married. Living in Jersey City, and qualified earner down in the financial district in New York. So
qualified earner,
earning.
I like that phrase. You said that earlier, and I was like, qualified earner. I'm like, I like that.
Yeah, it's just a modest way. You know, we've worked very hard to sharpen our skill set and place ourselves into an environment where we can grow. And I think that's what most people are looking for, especially our peers, just a space to grow, to be, and to have a good balance across their life.
I agree. For people that come into my shop, they have that same thought process, and I can't be the only person to try to show what I believe would be a great stepping stone for people to move forward. But I do believe that in the community aspect, like when you can grow with people, you can sometimes hold yourself accountable, or someone can hold you accountable. Like, I think you could be doing this better. And, you know, if you respect the community guidelines and, you know, how people are being brought, you know, you get to grow. I think it's amazing, though, because growth is really tough. I think growth is the one thing that most people, they want it, but they don't know how to get it. And looking at our first start on the notes here, influence over reality. You know, we spoke about this a little bit before we started. And, you know, I guess where are we going to start this? Because sometimes I have a hard time portraying how to say it comfortably, you know, like what people are really living, as opposed to the cage mindset of influence, you know. I'm trying to think.
So like, I think I could pick up and help you out. Like,
because I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. So like right now, like I think we both have like an issue with the influence that is bearing on so many people's minds, the weight that is on so many people's shoulders, where they aspire to be something.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they are there chasing their own dream, all that they see is the world around them. And I think that's strongly due to social media and how much of that has taken away in terms of our perspective and our time and our measuring stick in terms of comparison and living up to a status quo, as opposed to where now we have been enriched in our lives purely by the passion of succeeding and seeking opportunity that will benefit not only ourselves but our families. So we have a more precise view at our goal and what we need to satisfy us, as opposed to where people are now, especially entitling themselves as influencers, using that same branch and positioning that social media has allowed them to do, which now has made them feel almost larger than life, even to the points where they are repealed from their own family members due to the acceptance that they see from the outside world. And that has jaded so many people in our society, because now they only want to be something that someone wants to see. In essence, they can't even look in the mirror and see themselves anymore. They see a view, they see a number. And I think, unfortunately, society has brought us to that complacency of being a number in the system.
Yeah, when we spoke earlier, a friend of mine had a picture of him on Instagram. He got 100-something likes and depressed. I'm like, I think he looked great. You know, he's been working his ass off. But I'm like, dude, if 100 people actually walked up to you right now and said something to you, you'd shit yourself. You'd feel like God's gift to earth. I said, you really have to start to disassociate from the number, because I think that's what's really happening here. And I think going back to the reality versus the influence, you know, at 35 years old, I think I'm at a point where, because I've worked hard, I've gotten to experience things that some people just watch on social media. I see that half of this shit is bullshit. It's all smoke. It's all mirrors. It's marketing. It's what America is almost built on. It's the giant fucking marketing scheme. Like, everything's marketable. Your car, your house, your job, your politicians are a market. Like, everything is a market. And I think we're being very deceived because some people's lives can't see past it. You know,
No.
it's tough, because going back to the phrase qualified earner, you know, I've been earning a good living for a long time. I even tell people, I'm like, if you're upset with it, I said, try to do it. Like, come sit in my shoes and try to make them, like, whatever I do, like, see if you could do what I do. And if you can, hey, shit, let's work together. And let's really fucking get somewhere. Because most people just want what you have and don't really want to do what you already do to actually attain it. But I see that when people don't break the tier of American finance, like you were saying, everyone's a Republican after they make $50,000. I love that you said that.
One of the fun facts that my dad used to tell me as a kid, and that's because he realized that same thing. A person that immigrated here that would have most likely gone right away with the Democratic wave, no, he found opportunity, never took a handout, worked his ass off, and then he reached exactly where most of Americans are today, where Uncle Sam is just reaching out into one of your two pockets and taking it there.
So remember when we were downstairs and we talked about, like, the money matrix, and I had a hard time really believing in the system that we live in until I started making a certain amount. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. If this is a top percentage of what people make in this country, and I am still trying to navigate this, I'm like, this is a fucked system. Like, this whole thing is fucked. Like, even if I doubled my income, then they take more. They take almost half at that point. Mm-hmm. So I sit there and I go, what's the time really valued at this point when it comes to making money? You know, I think a lot of people are chasing, you know, when people say, I want to make my first 6 figures. And I'm like, I pray you get to that so fucking fast so you can break the thought of what you think it's bringing.
Exactly.
And that scared the shit out of me, because when I first hit that 6-figure marker, I was like, this is what I brought home. And I had some write-offs, like, you know, I have a business. So I'm like, wait a minute, this is not what it is. Like, I almost went into more of like now I get the marketing of the money chase. Oh, well, you should be making this and this. And, you know, got caught up into that a little bit. But even then, it's the same matrix.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's in that same world of, like, academics and what I like to call academic inflation, something that we haven't spoken about.
Right.
But that's whereas the education here in America and how everyone has been pushed in our generation, they only see 2 ways out now. Either influence and regurgitating information, and as soon as they know that marketing scheme that we spoke of, then they reach that position, and they might be a very well making tons of money, and then they change their atmosphere basically just to do the same thing but from the top end, as opposed to where now if you're seeking an education, you know that there's lenders. Those lenders that pay the schools know that they're going to be guaranteed money. So if the loan is there and the school is there, what is the school going to do? They're going to raise their cost and they're going to improve their land. So that is a field where now the people that now have degrees, they have to seek another degree and spend twice the money to now try and attain that same $100,000.
So I have a quick question for you to
Go.
kind of group on that. I agree. I went to college and I got kicked out. I told a whole story about that fucking shit show. But I started looking at the people that had graduated from my college and what they're doing. And a small handful of them doing quite well. But, you know, a few of them, I remember they weren't on scholarship. So it's like, you're doing well, but you also have that $1,200-$1,500 a month that comes off the top for that payment.
Oh, no, absolutely.
That you're paying for the next 10 something. Some people drag it 15, 20 years. And it's like, that stunts your growth, you know, in that whole sense. And it's like, was it really worth it? You start doing the math, as I like to say, the reverse math. Everybody likes to do the math going forward. And it's like, well, have you ever thought about like going to the end equation and see if where you're at that point makes sense to actually go backwards to it? You know what I mean?
So like for me, like that point of contention actually became very clear to me. I was in that same jaded era with my generation where we're halfway through school. We're doing well in school enough to attain our degree, but is that what we really want to do? And now we're so deep into the quicksand, we can't really change our mind. So
I've had that issue with a lot of my clients that I have almost felt like choked when they've told me that. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're in it. Like, you are so committed that you would almost have to like you got to break your whole mind to restart. And it's like, well, is it worth it at that point? And like, sometimes I got some guys in here, they will make the choice. They're like, no, I stopped. And they go into a really weird depression because they see what the world's really like outside of college.
And that's what happened to me. I wanted to study medicine, pediatrics. And as soon as I saw how big pharma had taken over, even at the academic level, I had to basically continue with my degree. I graduated with bioethics degree in Montclair State University, and I cannot use it because of how I feel against the vax. Right. So I'm taught to learn, but I can't use what I learn unless it fits under their influence, which routes it all back to that. So right now, most of the population in America, the working class, we're stuck in between reality and influence. Are we going to do and fit into the box that they paint us in, or the framing that they place us in, or are we going to escape and be an individual at its core and do what's best for us in our passionate way? So, and I'll tell you something, just to tie in the politics, that vision of being able to create, being able to be an individual, that apparent vision and perspective of America all changed for me when Donald J. Trump became president. Why? Because there was an individual that would actually represent the working class who was looking to make the community a better place in whichever way they could help, even in a minimal way. If you can change someone's life, that is big enough.
I like Trump's idea on the working class because I think that's what creates a kind of what I think you're saying, the ripple effect in society. Like there becomes a growth as opposed to like, I like the whole thing of like givers and takers. You know, if you can create more givers, you're going to create a lot more. But if you have a lot of people that just want to take, it's like eventually not enough deposits were made, more withdrawals were made. Like there's nothing left. And then we get to this point in this country where a lot of people just keep taking and taking. So now what's the government doing? They're printing. And now the mathematical equation for people has really, like, we've stretched it. Like now people are just not looking poor and they just got enough money with things, or you got people that are rich. Like it's one or the other.
Yeah, it's amazing how we've gotten to this point. But again, it's just how you said, a lot more takers than givers. And look, a lot of people criticize the former president for a lot of semantics, things that just don't make sense, perspectives and qualities that don't attribute to him.
They really relative either.
But look,
you know, I don't think
I like to give truths plain and simple, best served raw. And we were still waiting for the 8 years of Obama to give our people something, our people. And when Donald Trump stepped into the office 5 months later, he gave us one thing that Obama never gave us and always promised to, and that was opportunity. People just want a way to make out. and to find the American dream. A lot of people rub the American dream to be just destroyed, flat on the ground, stomped over. But it's not. I have a living embodiment of it. My parents have only been here 35 years. 3 children all graduated college. What are we really talking about here? All qualified earners, breaking tax brackets, producing for America. And we are a living embodiment of our communities as well. We help those that need it, and we provide consultation as well, and friendship and kind-heartedness, everything that it means to be an American. A lot of people embody, but it's just everyone wants the freedom of opportunity, a way to step up, either if it's through study, either if it's through experience or labor. And shout out to the laborers of our country, because all of my friends that chose a route of labor are much more well off, deep into starting their families.
I have a lot of
the opportunities are just more available because they have time. Although, unfortunately, it is a cost on the body and a sacrifice on that aspect. At least they have something over their head, food on the table, and
they're secure.
They're secure. But again, if you look now to how important politics amount to, people said, "Oh, my vote isn't worth anything." This, after January, just this year, it's worth $100 a month, because the latest administration has imposed a tax on everyone, every single tax bracket, and an increase of $1,200 a year as a standard. So each and every single paycheck, every month we're giving $100 to this administration. Why? So they can send it to a foreign country when there's people that are homeless, people that are struggling, the drug addicted, the afflicted.
So this is where I would say, so we can kind of like keep it kind of together instead of spread the field too much. You know, people in this country, and I'm going to go back to what we talked about down in the basement. I always believed that we needed a government. I don't believe with what the government is currently providing is what it's supposed to be. You know, whether it's under Biden's poor administration, whether it was under Trump's administration that was rising, you know, Obama's, which would teeter. You know, every presidency had its thing of what was good and what was bad. But I think when it really comes down to it, when you say opportunity, right, that people don't take it, I think that's the thing that makes this country great. You know, and I think Trump did give that as a branded staple for his marketing. You know, the attitude, I guess, you give and take with people. You know, if that upsets somebody, it's like you have to really ask yourself why. Do you have the experience in life, you know, of people maybe talking shit to you, and, you know, you have to sit there and eat it. You know, I think there's a lot of people that have very, very unqualified opinions. Like, you know, everybody wants to tell you what is going on, but never experienced it.
And that's, again, you know, in our regard where we led here from influence.
It's in reality.
You have to be careful in who you keep around your circle. And you have to also understand each and every individual. My message is this to you. If I was able to meet and get signatures from half of Congress, including a lieutenant general of the National Security Administration of the United States, what limits you from doing the same? I have no credible experience in politics, and I ran for legislation in New Jersey amongst all odds. I represent
I want to talk
a base.
I want to talk about that for a quick second. How he just explained, you know, even just from a small, you know, token right there, opportunity. Going back to the cage of the mind of what, like, we're given as, like, an American people. You know, we're given, as I have it on here, and I guess maybe we got to bring it in now, it's a good time, American luxury. You know, we talked about America itself just being luxurious. You know, I know you're Dominican, and you've been to the Dominican. I've seen the places you've talked about. We had an interesting conversation about that. And I see what it's like in these countries where they have nothing. And then just being here in America is a dream. So the American luxury, when we talk about it, it's something I try to have the most positive conversations with people about. It doesn't go that great. I'm usually challenging somebody's, like, internal, like, ideals, but I'm like, you can do whatever you want to do. Like, who's telling you you can't? The only thing I have a problem with goes back to, again, the social media standard. And I'm going to tie this all in because it's like you have people that are producing amazing, amazing things in this country. Artists, laborers, anything, anybody doing their own thing. But the social number isn't allowing them to feel accomplished. It didn't take me, because I didn't really have social media for my barber business. I grew it people to people, going out, talking. Like, I'm not looking for DMs. I wasn't looking for any of that. Like, when people said that's how they were like running their business, I'm like, good luck. Mm-hmm. There's no connection. There's nothing real other than that click. You have to make it real. Some people you can tell. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And this is why, for those that know me, I've never pursued a political position of influence on social media. I've posted things just on my story, just so that my personal connections and viewers would hear from me a cry, a plea in assistance and help because of that same experience. I literally lately this week, I've been arguing about the same, the influence versus reality, a lived experience against what someone is telling you. Because again, I understand life a little different after spending a summer as a child in Dominican Republic. I learned appreciation. I learned what it means to have privilege. Coming back to the United States, knowing that I have food that is safe, sanitary, warm running water, things of that aspect, things that are of convenience. And once you realize that, a lot of things change because your gratitude in America changes. Your sense of opportunity, the things that you have in reach are sensible, and you can conquer those. So I think that is where it usually always takes us, that sense of opportunity that America gives us. And I think unfortunately it's being lost due to social media because, again, people are just aspiring to be just as like someone else instead of wanting to be themselves.
I want to drift real quick before we go too far into one spot, though. I think this is the hardest part about opportunity and creativity and being an individual artist, because I've said this on previous episodes. I believe everybody is an artist, whether it's a painter, a speaker, whatever. Like, there is some type of artistry to every individual if you're actually given the outlet to explore it. But I'm seeing now that it is almost fucking impossible for people now to break the American chain cycle and really eat and struggle some shit out to actually make your opportunity worth it. I feel like opportunity is free, but the work to do it is what costs. I think anybody can do anything in this country. And I think they don't believe it because they look at it as, well, how is that possible? Like, it's possible in time. Some people just want it tomorrow. Like,
absolutely.
Like the guys who come to me, they want to be barbers. Like, oh, dude, I see what you do all day.
A lot of work.
And I'm like, do you want to be a barber? Come sit with me every fucking day for a week. And they're like, a week? And I'm like, it's a week of your fucking life, dude. Or you could jerk off all day, play your video games, go do this, and waste another week of your life. I said, because you know what? If you at least come in here and really sit down, you might go, yo, I really want to do that. I like how he talks. I like the actual art of cutting hair. I like the whole environment. Or you go, hey, I'm glad I checked it out. It's not for me. Like you said, your opportunities. You went out and just did it.
You have to do it.
You didn't have a result. It's like, whatever's going to be is what it's going to fucking be.
But yeah, I completely wholeheartedly agree with you. And that's what's lacking. People are now sheltered with their heart on their sleeves. Instead of getting in and getting their hands dirty, they're more afraid of the thought. Even though they want the reward at the end, they're scared of the journey. But as you and I know, the journey is much more rewarding than the actual reward.
Well, I think the journey is the reward at this point in my life.
It's an experience. And again, we get to speak based on our personal experience that reflects against the times. Most people can't do that. They only know what they are told and they regurgitate it.
So that's what I do struggle with. I love all my guys that come and support me. You know, I support them too. Even if we don't have the same lifestyle or agree, it's like I still want the best, you know, and I'll still speak the best for each individual. But I've noticed that unless you are some type of ambitious or some type of an animal, like you really want to get after it, like you just can't figure out how, like those guys that are starting off in 9 to 5s, even some girls I know started off in a 9 to 5, really, really believed that 4 hours after they got done to figure out the next part worked. A lot of people don't want to take that 4 hours or don't have that 4 hours. It puts them stuck to only learn certain things.
Yeah.
Entertainment, what's going on. You know, we talked about the Romans, right? Hey, they had the fucking, they had the Colosseum. It's like, show the battles. These people don't have much, so we got to give them a battle.
Yeah.
We got to keep them entertained. But going to the other side, the opportunity side, it's like, now I see what the opportunity is. It's another market. Like, my whole mindset has changed towards what I purchase, what I do.
Absolutely.
And I go back to that thing, the American luxury. I trip like you to these fucking third world countries, places where they look at us like we're kings. And I'm like, oh, trust me, man, if I walked into a restaurant, probably in Cherry Hill, there'd be about 50 other people that got more bread than me, maybe more status, more accomplishments, you know. But, you know, out there, it's like, that's different.
No, over there, there were 6 of us last month, and we ate at some of the most high-end gourmet restaurants.
Spent $30.
Spent between 6 people for a dinner, $150.
Yeah.
It's insane. And
For the best of the best.
Look, Jay, I actually returned, and I spent a week applying for jobs there. Because, again, now I have to be, we're both from New Jersey. I feel as though the people that govern over us are asking me to move out. I've even asked them on Twitter, if you want the keys, just ask me for them. Because I much rather live somewhere else and have peace of mind and know that what I'm earning is actually valued towards me. Now, the things that come out of our paycheck every 2 weeks, it goes to a cause that does absolutely nothing for us personally.
I agree.
But again, I feel as though people have been sensitized, again, due to the influence where, yes, the opportunities are there, but is that the one that is needed or is wanted?
Or does it align with you?
Or does it align with you? But my message to everyone is, you can do it. Just start. The first step is the most important step. Becoming a professional is practicing. Building your clientele is through networking. And you never know, if you're looking for something and you network with the right person, they might just pull you right in. But you have to make yourself available to that.
And,
you have to,
and valuable.
And valuable. And
real quick before we go, because I do want to continue that. Value, real fast. I want to talk about that.
value.
I hope I don't piss anybody off when I say this. I just might. But most people I know don't have any fucking value. They don't.
But that's because,
They don't.
like you and I,
they're good people, but there is no value. Like, when you're down, they have nothing to put on the table. Like, I've been in this situation in my life too many times to where the reason I am in this entrepreneurial state and this like kind of mindset of my own is because anytime I've needed to rely on somebody, where you needed that team, it wasn't there. Personal interest, this person doesn't really want to try, this is too hard. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is wrong with these people? They want it, but they don't really want it. They believe they want something, but they don't put the work in. So I get to the point now where I really only talk to people that I believe have value. And sometimes it's merely in perspective. People think it's money. They're like, oh, you call me broke? I'm like, no, that's exactly the first thought you had was money. Mine is a perspective. It's thought. If I suddenly tomorrow took every dollar I've ever earned, emptied all my accounts and said, I'm putting it on the fucking Eagles next week, and I lose it all, am I any different other than a jackass for that?
absolutely
I'm
not.
the same fucking person. So when I say like it's the perspective, it's like people are so lost in American luxury that they don't understand the concept of even why America was founded. It's like, it is an opportunity. It's all opportunity.
So, and it's literally, you couldn't have said it any better, because materialism, again,
It's what
just-
sells this country. It's
God-
another market.
it's just another market. And if we look at where we were at one time as a country, especially since its founding, and where our Federalists and our founding fathers argued.
I really need you to, real quick, for the people. This was new for me too. I will say I am not much of a book reader. I'm going to go figure it out, and I'll tell you my experience. I'll write a book one day.
Yeah.
But this is something that he had brought to me, and this is pretty interesting about our actual heritage as an American country. We'll bust that down.
No, absolutely. I recommend this It's available in many ways. It's what happened right before the formation of our Constitution, after we found revolution and independence as a country. The Federalists, everyone that signed on to the Constitution, and their key arguments surrounding what should be on that Constitution. Again, it's very, very basic to us and should be held as a standard to know our history, to know why we are here, and to understand how we strayed so far away. Bringing this all back in, we've lost our way because
of influence.
And it's just influence that poor influence that leads people towards materialism instead of the key values of what made this country.
Did you like rap music?
God and country.
Wait, did you like rap music?
Absolutely.
I loved rap music. I'm going to stray, but you know where I'm going with this. I grew up listening to Lil Wayne,
of course,
Ray, 50, and I remember, we're all young, like we like the beat, like, we got the clothes.
We used to chase the music. We used to go online every day after school and wait for the new
songs. Napster, just give me the music. That was the high. But years later, I'm sitting there going, look, I could still bop to a tune here and there, but it's like, wait a minute, Pussy Money Weed. That was a song. That was a song
that we can actually understand. Like, there's so many songs like that you hear now, and you're like, how in the hell? Just because we were children, we didn't understand that.
Right. But now we're older, and I see this, and I'm like, okay, look, some of this stuff, I guess it's just deep-rooted. I like it. It made me feel good at one point in my life, but now I see it. It's like, when you really want to destroy something, you can go back to influence instead of reality, and I feel like we could keep going back to influence because this whole thing is American luxury, American influence. It's like, what do you have? Not who you are anymore.
And I feel as though, 100%. And I feel as though, especially a lot of people that have opposition towards former President Donald J. Trump, they've been disillusioned inside of that perspective of influence, that they don't understand their roots. And that's why I always point back to history, and I always point back to experiences of us finding success, especially during a time that we can specifically see where we were granted that window. And it was under his presidency when a lot more things were brought back into our country, which expanded business, which expanded how much money we were able to utilize as individuals. But beyond that...
Real quick, you're a numbers guy, right?
Of course.
So...
numbers make sense.
All right, cool. So this may make sense to you. Maybe a couple people that I'm going to say this in front of, it might not make sense to. But I do believe that under Trump, we had people with a better sense of group opportunity. Today, I feel like it is a very, very, with how finances are today, with the way the economy is, I feel like we're in a very, very lone wolf type of environment where myself, I'm only a, single person in business because I have not found anybody that shares the same view. Back in the day, if somebody worked at a baker shop, the guy working the counter was just as invested to keep his job as the owner to run it. Now, the way people are, they just don't give a shit.
Well,
they're entitled. They want it all.
That's mainly, again, due to government influence and them having a hand on your back and telling you everything will be okay.
But look at, and this is where I was going to go with it. So
which is a lie.
I know some guys that went into business for themselves because they reached the peak potential of what their companies and sometimes unions have given them. And they're like, wait, that's it? I'm working this hard for just that number? It's like, well, the number sounds good until you tax it. You got your pension, you got your health care, you got this. And then you got a guy that busts his ass 50 hours a fucking week. And he's bringing home, let's just say $1,500 a week. And it's like, yo, that dude's doing really fucking good. And that dude, realistically, if he was smart with his money, would have just enough to invest more, just enough to live a little bit more, to go back into the same bracket of I have to go back to work the next week for the same guy that makes $900 a week. Mm-hmm. The cycle doesn't change. You can't buy yourself out of it. You can't even buy it out with a status unless you make at least like $250,000 a year. And even then, you're just breaking it. That's a top 2% in the country. You know what I'm saying?
But you're holding that against today.
Today's standards, yes. And that's why I think under Trump, a lot more people realized that there was a better amount that people could receive for their work. Now, what people are getting for their work is less. So there's people scamming a lot just to get work.
Well, again, that's all due to taxation, which influences inflation. When you lower the taxes on business, more businesses are going to open. Yeah. And when there's more businesses, there's more places for people to spend money.
But people don't know how to run business. I've seen people plenty of times in here with the great plan. I'm like, your plan only matters if you have the discipline to do it.
But that's why we blame our educational institutions, because
And all these business owners.
they're stuck on postmodernism. They just want to teach social issues to make the world a utopia and a better place, wishy-washy rainbow stuff. But instead, we need people that can count, read, and speak to people with proper English.
I think speaking is one of the biggest things that I think we lost as a country.
No, we need to breed confidence. We need to breed entrepreneurship. We need to breed individuals in the true sense, not individuals that want to be in the crowd and recognized as a whole. And we want to make inclusive of language and verbatim over a very small population. That is not fair to the grand population. That's not fair to the fabric of this country.
So I want to tell you something about my own ego. And this is weird that I'm going to talk about my ego, but
It's all important.
I think it is, because I think you could have people that have an ego with a good means behind it. You have somebody with a big ego where it's like, oh, that's a horrible ego to have. You know, like a narcissistic ego, that's a horrible one. But someone who's an optimist, it's like, he's so optimistic, it's just like, it's a little much.
That's me.
But I'd rather be around somebody with a positive ego. My whole thing was when I finally understood things past the ideals of certified earners, or what was that?
Yeah, certified earners, breaking tax brackets.
Yeah, once you get to that point, it's like, I want to show you what you think is clouding you from not living your life.
And that's exactly my life.
And that's a hard thing to do, because I've struggled with this. It's like teaching trigonometry to a fifth grader. They may not need it for another 10 years, even though you may not have that 10 years of youth, of creativity, of choices that you can make to get there. And I've lost a lot of relationships in my life.
Yeah, not everyone gets to learn that lesson the way we did.
Well, I've had friends, relationships. I've been in odd situations where I'm like, sometimes I'm going to say this in the most counterproductive way, and I'm going to sound hypocritical, but it's like, I did lose some of the love in my life because I had learned too much, and I learned it too fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, dude, like,
Shout out to all my haters, all the people that deleted me off Instagram, Facebook, because look where we are today. I've not been more vindicated. I've only been trying to spread the truth and give you hope. And now you see where I am today.
there are a lot of people
there's
like
a lot.
you and I.
Yeah.
And I think that me personally, like I said, I'm more of I do my own thing. Like, I was very happy to link up with you and get to talk to you. And now that I know, like, this is the type of person where we're going to have plenty more conversations. Like, that's the gift of life and networking. But, you know, I guess if I'm going to reach on this one for a second, it's like he had said earlier, taking an opportunity is, you know, kind of like the main essence of life. I think it was another one of those stupid reels on Instagram, but like, and I love watching. But, you know, it was like, you get two things in life. You get a chance and then a choice. And it depends on what you look at as a chance. It's like, yo, it's cold in this room. It's like, well, there's a heater. It's like, do I turn the heater on? It's like, well, you have a choice. If you don't turn it on, you stay cold. If you do, you warm up. And sometimes it's just that simple. People take a very, very crazy concept and they're like, what do I do? I'm like, go this way or this way. Simplify what is in your best interest. And sometimes I go back to this a lot. It's like when people are trying to find what they're interested in or what makes them, it's like a lot of times they're asking very unqualified people, people with no experience, people with a tainted view, somebody that's jaded. And it's like, you know, there's a psychology to understand people before you ask something very, very serious. Like, does this person have your best interest or only want to assume they have your best interest?
So actually, like, I want to touch on something very delicate that goes across with me, Philly Phil, Pauls, and Nick.
Sure, go ahead.
That ties right into this. Especially what you were speaking earlier, that some people take the opportunities for granted, or even they don't see themselves in that position of sacrifice, right? Well, we were all struggling through college, especially in our generations, the mid-90s kids. We had parents that were stuck in old ways, and we had a culture that was pushing us in another way. And we're in the middle in that tug of war.
A really good way to put that, too.
But when we were in that deep end of college, where are we going to actually utilize this to create freedom financially? All of us put our heads down and we humbled ourselves. Because yes, we had somewhat of an ego because of the degree we were going to achieve. But when we saw that,
sense of status of the accomplishment.
yeah. But then when we started to see that $70,000 starting is now $40,000 worth in value.
Right.
You see that once you get that degree, you have all of that debt and you can't buy that home. You can't purchase that engagement ring. You don't have time to date. Can't live. So we realized that we had to do something. Thank God still to this day. And it has become a testament to our lifestyle and what we've been able to achieve because we agreed to something, we humbled ourselves, and then that allowed us to put our head down and work. And that created opportunities. And what was that?
I think I love what you just said. I just don't think it was for everybody. I think if you had that in you to see
We did.
it, then yeah, you did. You
No. But I say this in regard to all of us because all of us we took a pact almost like an oath. And all of us reached opportunity and success at the same time because of that one point of singularity. We called ourselves Team One Goal. And that one goal was to reach success. And we realized that we had 5 things that should put us at that level of humility. We had God, we had our family, we had our breath to breathe every day, we had the ability to wake up and walk and use our hands, and we had food. Once we realized that those are the 5 only things that matter, nothing else matters, everything is just an obstacle to overcome. And all of us have now become successful men with great women by our sides that we've been able to find due to our value and our perspectives and where we stand. And we have our entire lives ahead of us to now create children, teach them the right things, and create an addition to the coming generation of people that are sensible, have value, and know where they're going. And above all, have respect for themselves and others.
I just think that's not taught, unfortunately.
It's not.
I think where I've struggled at in the past with people is, so I don't have any children. I'm 35, or I'm going to be 35 soon. And I never wanted to be a young parent. I've seen what being a young parent is, and nothing against it. You know, if that was the road that you had traveled down, that's the road you traveled down. But at the age of 35, where I'm at now, my mindset can say, I have everything that I've experienced that I want to show my children. Like, and I'm not saying this against anybody that has had children young, but unless you are in a certain type of position financially, some of the things that I've learned going to different countries, experiencing what really is the American dream and what's the American nightmare, you know, it allowed me to sit there and go, now, if my kid has something that it needs to understand, I got it. I got everything that I wanted to learn before I was stunted to be able to find it. Because that's where I say, money's great. I think money is, you know, I work for money, so I create income.
We need it.
Yeah, we need it. And at the end of the day, I would say money can just put you in a place to understand if you want what you truly want. Like if you want to be that guy that plays drums all day, it's like, yo, you got the money. Go buy a drum kit and go practice. An hour later, it's like, I got to get better at this. This is hard. It's like, it's okay. You can either sell that drum kit or fucking waste more money. It's like, try something else now.
You realize,
just keep trying.
you realize when you buy that big Ferrari, how many times you're actually going to pull it out of the garage kind of thing. And it's...
Well, real quick, I want to go back to the influence too, because I have some things that I've understood from influencers that I've met in the past. And I guess my purpose in life has been the barbershop, is to grow the people around me, have them grow with me. Like, you know, I'm learning these things and I would love for you to understand them too. You know, if I fail at something, it's like, I'm going to tell you. Like, all my guys in here, this is not this is a Hollywood fest. This is where I'm just going to tell you everything to make my cock look bigger. It's like, nah, dude, like I did this and I failed fucking miserably. Miserable to the point where it could have destroyed everything. It's like, I did that.
And I think that's where
You know what I mean?
friends turn into family, because you're able to bounce back off of not opportunities, but failures, where people have taken different things on, and you're able to...
More failures, actually, than wins.
Absolutely.
But the win made up for
everything.
For every one win made up for 10 failures. So every time I kept fucking something up, like whether it was on one process, another process, like I've been cutting hair for almost 20 years. Next year will be 20 years. That's 2 decades of my life. Anybody that thinks I was perfect in 20 years of my life doing this, it's like, no, I fucked up so much shit. To be able now at this marker tell you, well, the reason I'm really fucking crushing it now is because I just learned for 20 straight years why to do this, why not do that, why to present yourself this way, why to be an individual, why not to go do this. It's like, you learn. Some people don't even look at it as like, I put 20 years into the game. Like,
that's something that's what it takes.
Yeah, they're like, well, I want to do what you do. I'm like, I can sit 20 years in the action.
10,000 hours, they say it takes, right?
I'm over that. If you do 20 years, I think I'm at like 30, I think it comes out to like 30-something thousand hours.
And that's what it takes, but we should be setting an example of that, the grind.
I set the example, and I still understand that it is very difficult for people to do. Like, it has to be a truly broken matrix. And that's where I have come to a point in my life where when people ask me questions and they want advice, I am 100% going to put it on the foreground and say, listen, if I was in your situation, this is what I would do. But it's coming from a perspective of someone who has no children, someone who works for himself and generates his own income, someone that has a very, very grown list of proper morals and values. So now it's like, this may not work for you if your values don't even match with mine. Like, I'm not a money guy. Like, I raise my prices because I raise it with the market. But at the end of the day, some people are like, you should be charging this. I'm like, I love my people. Like, why would I want to hurt my people to come see me?
That's trust in business and knowing your clients. And again,
the relationships.
It's a shame because we see that pattern now due to politics where we've been pushed and shoved into just one corner to buy from these 5 people. And again, like, as much as I hate to say it, I have to bring people to realization, but compare those 4 years of 2017 to 2021, everything was, we had access to American luxury.
Yeah.
The everyday person was able to level up. The statistics on it was that there was a 20% growth in the average annual income. Where else would you have seen that? And now we're all getting choked out. Yeah. And we have to take that into consideration.
They gave us 20 but choked on 30, and they pulled us back 10.
America, at the end of 2020, by the entire population, 20% of us were in debt. Yeah. Now the debt has risen to 60%. And we have to ask ourselves, when is too much? When are we going to start valuing our vote? When are we going to start looking out for our community, knowing that we can take over our power in the community, some of us together, and we can make a change that will impact us so deeply that we'll be able to talk about it for the next 20 years.
I believe when entertainment goes away, I truly believe, I guess answering that, it's like when entertainment becomes limited, when people stop looking to entertainment because the high is no longer, and that's what happened to me. Like, my entertainment value when I was a young kid and I sold drugs, I had made a lot of money. I had almost lived the lifestyle financially, and I'm like, it's no different. You just do things of more. Like, instead of putting $25 down on your blackjack hand, you play 1,000. Instead of going to Texas Roadhouse for your steak, you go to the Capitol Grill. Instead of getting maybe an entry-level Mercedes, now you're looking at a Range Rover. Tax purposes. But, but when you sit there and you start looking at all these different things, it's like when I did make a certain amount of money, it allowed me to understand why the whole thing is a scam.
100%.
It's all a matrix of just like, you can't get out. So, and this is where I go back to my life. When you talk about individuality, I live my life as an individual. It confuses the shit out of people because people have told me, you should have a bigger business. You should have this. You should do this. You should do this. And I said, I am the most at peace person. When a problem comes up in my life, I can tackle it because I don't have 20,000 more I'm still trying to catch up on. Like, everything is done because I have my individuality.
Yeah, and
I do it this way.
That breeds a standard, that breeds your discipline, that you already have a perspective of where you want to be, so you're able to lock in on that.
But if I could say it is its own prison, I believe the American society gives you 2 prisons. One, they dress up to be nicer, because I do believe, and I saw this recently, when people go into entrepreneurship and they go into that open mindset and they go, okay, it's one thing to have an open mindset, it's another to physically have to live it. Like, okay, now you're going to live with that open mindset. So whatever you stand on, like, you got to stand on. Like, people looked at me when I got tattooed and they're like, are you out of your fucking mind? They're like, you tattooed your neck, you tattooed the back of your head. And I'm like, yeah. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. And I said, you don't understand. Like, the type of person that I've evolved into allowed me to actually explore these types of life. It's like, this is actually, as ironic as it is, this is a badge of honor. I don't wear this like, oh, fuck, man, I can't get a job. I don't want your job. Like, I see what Trump was trying to give back to the community, where it's like, yo, look everywhere for opportunity. It is in every conversation. It is in every handshake. It is in every interaction. You go to Starbucks, talk to the fucking barista. If you have nothing to talk about, try anything. Change that person's day.
It's that mutual respect, that sense of commonality. And that's what we need.
We're all the fucking same, dude. We're all the fucking same.
And again, one of the basic things with Trump, how many times have you seen the president of the United States?
Once.
I've seen him 15 times. Why? Because there's one of them that had made himself available. I've stood on the southern lawn of the White House, right in the backyard. I used to see the soccer fences that Barron used to kick his balls into balls. But again, it's so easy because there's one person that actually represents and stands for us. Most of the people that have something negative to say, commentary or perspective on Donald Trump, they haven't seen him at length. I've taken over 30 people to Trump rallies, completely changed their perspective just from that one event. Why? Because they can actually hear what he's saying, hear the tone of his voice, see the sun shining on his face, and see how his body language is speaking. We were at the Bronx last Thursday. Amazing. We were waiting there since 10 in the morning. About 4,000 people were there, which they let in. Even his consultants were against him visiting the Bronx. And that man said, no, I'm going to show up because those people care.
I also think that something about Trump's aura, you know, he's out there to, like, he's putting himself out there.
It's putting your head down and working. Those that put their head down and work realize and see who's standing in front of them. When have you seen a 74-year-old man stand and give a speech for 3 hours in the same position? His knees don't buckle. He doesn't move. He doesn't even have that antsiness. And then he takes a flight, does it again, and then again. I don't even know when he sleeps, and he's 73. And me, get lazy over anything? This is what I mean. This is insane of comparison.
I think that goes also, though, to a person in the entrepreneur's seat. Like, the way I live my life, if I choose to want to do something and I really want to, like when I work 12 hours a day, people go, damn, dude, you shouldn't be working that much. I'm like, you know, to what you believe is work, yeah, that's probably a lot. I said, I wake up, I come in here, and I'm like, I got Bobbity, I got him. You think, like, I start running off, and I'm like, okay, no, like, this is what I'm excited to do. You know, something like Trump, you know, to do things like that as a person, like, you have to have some type of internal belief.
Just different.
So that you just run on a different clock.
Just different. And again, it's just insane how people...
You said you're a God man, right?
Yeah, God.
And
definitely.
I'm not huge into religion. I have a faith. But I do believe that there is a certain essence of God in people that when they find a true belief, and it's like, yo, I see this. I've seen both sides, and I see where I'm supposed to be. I think that's where some people draw a hard line, where they don't know whether to cross that one side. It's like, my life sucks. It's like, cross the line. Take the sacrifice, cross the line. Go through the hard struggle and realize what being a real person, whether you want to call it an American, a human being, whatever, you're Episcopalian, Catholic, Muslim, Jew. It's like, do you hold your life to a high regard? Because if you do, I don't care what you practice. No. I don't care what your political beliefs are. Are you a good person? Do you believe in the method of a good individual?
And
if you are, I can rock with it.
It definitely boils down to that because, again, the fear of God being in someone is just living against that moral standard. Yeah. And that moral standard gives us a compass as to how to survive and live in common ground with thy neighbor. And if we're able to do that in unison, then nothing else shall, be needed in our entire world. But the thing is that a lot of people are greedy. A lot of people go against that grain, think that they can get away with it, and they occult themselves. And that's where corruption begins and greed and everything that's bad in this world. But if all of us would just realize, hey, we can do a lot more. Let me rephrase it. If everyone was to do for themselves and held themselves as a high value person, no matter where in life they are, that value will then correspond to the neighbor. Because not only is the neighbor going to learn from your experience, your characteristics, you may be able to help them out at a certain point. But if one person grows, we all grow in unison. Now, as long as it's a very thin line there, because if one person grows and decides to stunt their growth or go a different way, again, that is something that goes against moral standard. But if we look at Donald Trump, he's the only living president that has lost almost a third of his net worth in that seat, whereas every other president has doubled. But even, I want to try and incorporate this thought. Jay, would you rather believe what someone tells you on the television that you don't know, that makes millions of dollars, that goes on the television screen and reads from a script half of the time? Would you rather listen and have a conversation with that person, or would you rather have a conversation and take understanding from a person you've known for 30 years?
So being a barber for almost 20 years, I've met a lot of salesmen, and no matter how much they try to convince me that what they're doing is good, they read from a script, they have an agenda. And to me, once I see qualities in somebody, that's instantly, I may not call them a salesman, but it's like, okay, this isn't the genuine understanding that I know to have. You're still selling me something. Like they sell everybody in America is sold something. Do you wear Nike pants? Okay, somewhere that was sold to you. Whether it was Michael Jordan, Space Jam, the NBA, one dude in the rap video wore the Air Force One, whatever the case may be. We're all sold something. And I think he does give a little bit of genuine, ideal. It's like, hey, I'm not reading a script. I think he has his own script. I believe everybody does. Everybody has a reason for doing what they're doing, whether it's financial, brand, whatever. Like being in business, I've seen different levels, of different companies and where they sit at. I'm like, all right, I understand that we got to make this country work. It's got to financially run. We're a clock. Sometimes the cogs are a little grinded out. We got to replace some of them. And I do believe, like we spoke downstairs, that I just believe the government now is overran with people that are bad cogs in the clock.
The government should never be in charge of our lives. No. People depend on the government, and that is not American. What they tell you on the television is democracy. It's not democracy. Democracy is in danger, but not the way they tell you. Donald Trump does not signify trouble or danger towards democracy. You being able to go cast your vote and what you think, unstained from any influence.
That's tough.
At the
unstained. That's very tough to be.
And again, that's my point. Why are we listening to people, anchors on the television that regurgitate the same message? Every single channel will tell you the same thing except for one or two. But when you go talk to your neighbor, it's a completely other baseline. Everyone feels the flames of the prices at every single register. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I've embarked on a mission of, there's 15 staple things across your daily life that are affected in a negative way by the Biden administration as compared to the Donald Trump administration. So why are people still in disbelief, disarrange that it was better under his administration? Government should only serve as guardrails and business and regulations and regulators of what happens in the day-to-day life of every American. Why is it costing you about $1,000 more a month just to live? You now have to work 15 more hours
another week
per month just to be stable. Where do you have room to enjoy your life? If you simply, on November 4th, cast your vote for the person prior, you're going to get 15 things and $1,000 back into your account every month, beyond the growth that you can stunt yourself. Because America will be booming after we're drilling and baby drilling again. Once we have inflation down, once interest rates are at the floor, business will reemerge. And that's
but it's a cycle. That's our American cycle we've had for
but
years since we can go back.
as I was trying to explain to you, one of the worst things that ever happened, and even this argument about with the identity politics that also is
Chase, where we at? We good? Basically, like had it. All right, cool. We
can wrap it up real quick.
Well, basically,
so I was gonna go on.
Yeah, go because let's get to this and we'll have some closing arguments here. Because I really appreciate you coming on, and I really want to tie this in.
Yeah,
this is good shit.
So, like for me personally, backing Donald Trump, I backed Bernie Sanders in 2016. Why? Because he wanted to occupy Wall Street, shut down tax rich, bring equity. But I realized that if I signed the papers and the dotted lines to go to college, I already conformed to that. So on a moral basis, I understood that I have to carry that cross that I took to bear. So either I'm going to have to make it out of here alive, or I'm going to have to work my ass right after it. And that's what I set forth. But in America, with Donald Trump being in power, he liberated and opened the floodgates to American success. Because we have these politicians that since the 1960s traded off segregation to enslave us all under debt. A lot of that argument during the Civil War that the Dixiecrats turned into the nowadays Republicans, that's all a lie, because the Democrats even moved it to the North and voted to keep slavery in power.
Well, this is where I'm a huge Kanye West fan, because when he talked about
him and Alex,
when he talked about the slaves, it's like we're new age slaves, and when people sit there and go, this dude is off his rocker, it's like no. It's like you chose your chains now.
Oh, yeah,
you want a Benz? You chose it. You want your clothes? You chose that. Like, you chose the slavery route. As crazy as that is to people, it's like, well, wait a minute. That's not the idea of slavery. It's like, no. You break it down. It's like, what holds you to the purpose that you have been given? It's like, at one point, it was slave owners.
Let me
in the flesh. But now we have companies that are our owners now.
Let me take you back to slavery, right? You remember the term in U.S. History 1, indentured slave?
Yes.
Slaves that were educated enough to make an agreement to work till X time and be freed to the North. Now, the slaves that were brought over and were less ignorant weren't given that opportunity. But again, even though that was there for some, we understand that mechanism only worked because there wasn't a revolution there. And that rotten form of thinking came from somewhere else. Look, I am from the Dominican Republic. My parents immigrated here 35 years ago, just to remind you. But there's a wide difference in between how the Dominican Republic came to be and still is, as compared to where we are now, or where we reached in the United States with slavery. A lot of people, they've changed Christopher Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day. They blame Christopher Columbus for being a colonizer. Why doesn't anyone blame Sir Francis Drake, who came after Christopher Columbus, who actually bought slaves from African slave sellers and brought them to the United States, brought them to the Caribbean, brought them to the Caribbean, to Southern America? No one blames him. Why? Because we are misinformed, we're miseducated, and people don't go far enough into history or deep enough into history to make their arguments now.
So the uneducated part, I'm gonna really hit home with. I appreciate.
Well, you have to log in the hours, and you have to be informed before you speak. And now we see people that are influenced, regurgitating opinions that are hurting themselves. You are hurting yourself if you are a colored person and you believe that racism exists nowadays. If racism occurs in your personal day, you have a mouth, you have the police, you have the Supreme Court, you have so many civil rights departments and places of business that will cover you and make you rich. I'm begging for someone to be racist to me because I'm going to cash out.
I don't believe racism only, like, kind of like what you said, and I'm going to say this in the most...
Even prejudice.
Well, I'm going to go back to the Black Lives Matter movement. It's what might piss cold people off.
It's the biggest money laundering scheme in the last decade.
But here's where I'm at with it, and this is where I believe that the black culture really took to this. And it was like a lot of that they did.
Rest in peace, George Floyd.
For years. They didn't really experience the hurt that was just being carried over. I know people where I've asked them, like, when was the last time someone was truly racist to you? And I remember I'd asked this to a buddy of mine. He's about like 6'2", 250. And I said, you're screaming that we have a racism problem, and yet you've never been called out. No one has ever walked up to you blatantly and like called you out for being black. And he was just like, excuse me? I'm like, I'm just asking, are you just adapting to what they're trying to sell you? That's all I'm asking.
Let me tell you a touching story.
Hold on one second. Because I think we could drag this for a little bit.
One more story real quick, okay, before we break up. It's a big story, especially with BLM. During those 2 years, I lived in Newark, New Jersey, in the hood, right off of Springfield Avenue, a couple blocks away from City Hall. 3 people that I knew that I was trying to educate, give some sort of like substance to tell them. They used to see me in my suit going to the bank to work and try to make fun of me. I'm like, yo, if you speak just how I speak right now, and you know how to count money, right? I can make you $20 an hour. Go get a suit and I'll put you in an interview because I know all the managers. A couple months later, it's July. It's about 11:30 at night, minding my business, playing some video games.
I know where you're going with this guy.
All I hear is boom, 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 boom. I'm like, it's not July 4th. I go outside. In front of my car that's parked on the side, there's another car diagonally facing my car, almost hitting. The whole windshield is butchered with bullet holes. I see people scrambling out of the car. Hours later, I see someone coming out of one of the apartments across the street, bandages above their head. 2 of them died. 3 months later, George Floyd dies. City Hall inundated with protesters for George Floyd, who died in a state most people probably don't even know to point out on the map, in a city that probably no one knows to point out on the map. How many ever 100 miles away? But the blood of those friends and people that I was trying to actually influence in a positive way, their blood was still on the ground wet, and no one cared about them. That is the disorder of BLM that has brought me in contention against it, because where is someone going to value the lives of each and every community before they go out on social media, black out their page, and show support for someone that was utilizing a drug and fake money to do negative things, ended up in a negative consequences because he posed a negative attitude towards law enforcement?
Again, I go back to just what American culture is being taught and how we're living our lives, influence to reality. I feel like whatever people are going to put in front of you, like I used to say this when we would talk about the police shooting videos. I'm like, if you go find me 10 videos of a black kid shooting at a cop and you play them all at the same time in unison, and that's all you drill in, it's like you're going to get people psychologically to understand that that's what's happening. But what if I went and found 10 videos of a young white kid that took too much Xanax and did the same thing? It's like, well, wait a minute. This happens here too. It happens here. Just what can we get you to believe? Going back to the marketing, the influence, the reality. Like, I feel like this is all just kind of tying in as a giant thing.
When I was very young in age, you remember we used to watch Dragon Ball Z?
I was a Pokemon fan.
All right, so that's Saturday. Dragon Ball Z used to play every Monday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. What's on at 5:30?
The news.
I used to tell my mom, why are we going to watch the news where we see people dying? All this bad news, one happy dog story, when we can just be watching my cartoons and be happy. Yeah. I remember that memory, and I've always just navigated myself to turning off the TV unless it's for entertainment purposes. If it's news, I'm always countering it. I'm looking it up twice.
Have you ever noticed, and I've talked to Polidor and Nick about this, shout out to Psychotic and Iconic and the boys over there, but you notice a lot of times you'll watch your NFL game on Sunday or Monday, and it's like it's the last game, and it's like, what comes on right after? Before, like, when the game's over, you get up real quick, you go to the bathroom, you get a drink, and it's like, you come back, and it's like, 2 men were killed in Allegheny. Yeah, I'm like, oh, yeah, turn your shit off.
The worst is when they show you the preview in the middle of the fourth quarter. Breaking news coming. I don't want to hear that. Yeah. I don't want to go to sleep stressed. Yeah. And again, a lot of people, unfortunately, are victims to this in everyday America. And people that have achieved some sort of success in the darkest of times, that have this positive perspective that there's more to come. The best is yet to come.
Yes.
That's the message we have for you here today.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like let's tie it in and, have a little closer, because after everything, I was very opening. It was very open. I appreciate your conversation first off.
Definitely look forward to more.
Absolutely. But I guess my closing thing is, after this conversation today, in this country, you can be whoever you want to be. If you want to be a good person, you can. You want to be a piece of shit, you can be a piece of shit. However life is going to go is life's farthest and grandest journey. But at the end of the day, nothing beats good morals, good values, the understanding of a dollar. That's it. It's just an understanding of what the things we have been given in this country and what they truly are. Not their influence, but the power of what they can give you. The power of what you understand you can have, And where do you put your change? Where do you enslave yourself? Is it to the bottle of wine? Is it to the pack of cigarettes? Is it to the bar? Is it to your car?
Television screen,
your house? It could be anything.
Know your enemies.
Exactly. And I think sometimes in this country, our enemies are given to us as entertainment. I am the first person to tell you, I love when fantasy football comes around. Me and all the guys get to come together. And you know what? I will say, for a little bit of time while we play, it's like it's a part of fun that I still enjoy. But, at the end of the day, after fantasy football, I'm back to work. I'm back to progressing. I'm back to doing this. Like, I give myself very, very short amounts of entertainment, because when I was giving myself a lot of entertainment, I wasn't doing no good.
Running.
I was just feeding the dopamine high. It's like, yo, just give me the dopamine. Like, what's going to get me the highest, and how can I make it seem like what I'm doing is great when really it's only great to me. I'm not doing any great for anybody else.
No, doing good for someone else sometimes is the best that we can always do. It puts the most joy in our heart, and it makes for better success. And
be the giver, not the taker.
Hey, sometimes that's all it is, and that blessing comes tenfold.
Hell yeah. Marcos, I'm so happy you came on, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're still here, this is my boy Marcos, and we haven't been filming for a while, due to the fact that this economy has been crazy. Trying to step up and move forward, and it just kind of shows that there's a matrix to what life has become. And whether you make a lot of money, whether you make a little money, it really is just, you have to have a good perspective on life. And I think if you can have that and understand why it is that you do what you do, then I think, we can make America great.
So easily, man.
Maybe Donald J get in a fucking
Absolutely,
building.
Make sure to like and subscribe to listen to I'm a Barber, one of the best podcasts here with my friend Jay Hollywood. And again, it's just a pleasure to be here, to be able to, give a little bit of my insight, my experience, because, again, I just want to see all of my friends, all of my peers, those that grew up with me, just achieve the greatest things, all of those dreams, because they're more than attainable. But we have to make sure that we participate in our civics to make sure that we, hold that intact, because
I think we also do need to be involved in our communities.
There's an opportunity there for really, I'm sorry to inundate you with the word opportunity, but our communities need you. Even 5-10 hours a day. You don't know the things that we're capable of. If you take a peek and look, you'll be surprised to see what you find.
Absolutely, man. I'm so happy that this was a common message that we both understood before we did this, because I will say my community in the barbershop, we started off with partying and girls.
Yeah, it's a revolution.
And now we're talking about, hey, man, like, I want to have a family. It's like, but my money's off my this. Like, all right, well, let's really try to get your life on track. I think if we can get people like that in our lives more, instead of just, oh, well, just deal with it or just do this. It's like, no, we are in the land of fucking opportunity.
Yeah.
Anything is fucking possible here. And if you actually try, you'll get it.
You'll get it.
You'll fucking get it. It's not that fucking hard.
America is great. Let's keep it that way. And that's all we can do. That's all we can ask for.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Salud.